May I come in, sir?
Yes, come in.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Are you fully vaccinated?
Yes, sir, I am.
No symptoms of COVID, I suppose?
Nothing yet, sir.
Please, you may remove your mask.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So, Sam Varghese,
Yes, sir.
please introduce yourself to the board, highlighting your educational qualification and work experience.
Sure. Respected members, as you can see, my name is Sam Varghese. My roots are from Kottayam in Kerala. I had the opportunity to spend the first half of my life in Muscat, which is the capital of Oman, where I finished my matriculation. After which I came to India and did my further schooling and graduation in BCom Honours, which I completed from SRCC in Delhi University. After this, I pursued my chartered accountancy with Ernst & Young in India, where I completed my articleship and the course. Presently, I'm working with a IT company in their finance department, Microland in Bangalore. Other than preparing for civil services, I enjoy traveling and watching TV shows. People who know me say that I'm empathetic, witty, and sometimes loud.
Sam, you are a qualified chartered accountant. You have had a long experience of working in the private sector. Did you not find your job attractive or remunerative, both?
Yes, sir, I do find both intellectual stimulation and financial satisfaction in my job. But I've always wanted to make a more meaningful contribution to the world around me. And what started as a mere fascination when I saw the ambassadors to Oman from India during my time there, then slowly developed into an ambition to work with the diplomatic machinery of India and make a more meaningful contribution to the world around me than I'm doing today.
As CA, what is going to be your contribution in bureaucracy?
Sir, I would believe that maybe in my functions as a chartered accountant will not be directly put to use depending on the services that I get allocated to. But the learnings that I've had in my decade of work experience about the use of data, about how to plan your work, about work ethic, how to work with various stakeholders to achieve a stated goal, I think this will hold me in good stead to whatever service I get allocated to, along with the subject matter expertise that I have that might help.
Sam, a perception is emerging that the chartered accountants are gradually losing their glory, and particularly it came into focus during the period of demonetization. So instead of advising the corporate houses and big businessmen to pay tax legally and truthfully, they are assisting in tax evasions, money laundering, frauds. How do you look at the whole scenario?
So I would tend to agree with you that there has been a trend which we saw from the Satyam scam itself, and through demonetization, and now with the scams in the ILNFS and Diwan Housing Finance Corporation Limited. We do see a trend of chartered accountants not following the ethics of their profession, and also the colloquial understanding that a chartered accountant will help you find devious ways to save taxes. While this is happening in some places, I do think that the function of chartered accountancy is very foundational for corporate governance. A chartered accountant is the link who shows that the management is being true to its various stakeholders. So I think the chartered accountancy profession itself needs to correct these errors. There has been a visible sight of some disciplinary action being delayed in a lot of cases. The Parliament is also trying to take action with the recent amendment.
Don't you think that ICAI needs to be revamped thoroughly?
I would agree, sir. ICAI does need to be revamped, also not just because of the disciplinary actions, but also because technology has also moved very ahead of times. Today, big data, the usage of drones for physical verification and stock audits, technology has moved forward, but the CA bill, which was drafted in 1949, is still the same. And though it does serve its foundational purposes, every law would need to be dynamically changed according to the times, and thus the ICAI also in its functions and in its monitoring of its professionals will need to be revamped.
One last question related to your area of core working. Why audit reports are given or issued without any assurance, with so many disclaimers and caveat?
So this comes to one of the key tenets of the auditing profession, that the auditor is not a bloodhound, he is only a watchdog. So there is the auditor functions basis the reports and the understanding given to him by the management, while he is required to do his entire due diligence with audit practices and sample checking to go into the books and check for cases of fraud. As we have seen through the years, there can always be things that slip under his nose, and thus an auditor cannot give a completely disqualified opinion and needs to put in certain disclaimers, which is the nature of the
wonderful
job.
One, let us discuss something about Kerala.
Sure, sir.
What is this Kudumbashree?
So Kudumbashree is actually a very powerful program in the governance of Kerala, along with women empowerment, which started in around 1996 when the district planning campaign was started, where it was decided that a lot of last mile will be achieved in democratization if Kudumbashree is involved in the
it's a very hugely successful model in Kerala.
Yes.
Don't you think that this model should be replicated in all other states, particularly in the North India?
Yes, sir, I think it should be, and I think there are also steps towards. We can also see trends of states learning from each other. We recently saw Kerala state government officers going to Gujarat to learn their dashboarding mechanism of the Chief Minister's office. I would think that it is very hopeful that states will also come to Kerala to learn from the huge success of Kudumbashree today.
What are your views on Nokku Koli?
I'm sorry, sir.
Nokku Koli, have you heard of this?
Yes, sir.
What are your views on this?
Yes, sir. Nokku Koli is actually one of the first things that come to mind when people discuss the industrial development of Kerala. So trade militancy is associated with Nokku Koli, where a charge is made, whoever does the job, by the union who is powerful in the area. So this doesn't allow businesses to achieve cost efficiencies. They have to go with a certain rate and a certain, might I say, cartelization of labor, which then obviously affects the...
Do you think the government of Kerala will be able to get rid of this practice?
So the government of Kerala has already passed laws against this practice along with...
Laws are there, but do you think practically it is possible for the government to take the ire or wrath of the trade unions?
So today in my experience, I have seen that it has reduced. I have seen places where it was there earlier and it's not there. But I do believe that it is still happening in certain localities, and it has to be, the last mile correction is still required, and it is something that has to be focused on. Thank you, sir.
Sam Varghese.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the contributions of Varghese Kurian?
Sir, Mr. Varghese Kurian is actually the founder of Operation Floods. He is the person who took us to the largest milk producing nation of the world. And through the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Movement, he spearheaded this action.
Now, moving over to the land of Kerala. It is known as the land of gods. Why?
So this tagline as land of gods or God's own country actually came about in the 1980s, when the Kerala government really wanted to give an impetus to the tourism industry there, and thus gave it the land of God, God's own country or land of God, because of the great presence and pristine beauty of nature, untouched beauty of nature that you can see in the Western Ghats. And the beaches and the hills are 2-3 hours away from each other in Kerala, thus giving you a whole view of nature's beauty, and thus the tagline, God's own country, which really worked for our marketing of Kerala's tourism.
And I think you must be familiar with the history of Kerala, because if I correctly remember, one Ashokan inscription mentions Chol Pandey, Kerala Putres, Satya Putra. Are you aware of this?
Sir, I'm aware that the earliest empire there was the part of the Sangam Empire, and one of them was the Chera kingdom. And even the name Kerala, I believe, comes from the word Kerala Putto, which means son of Chera. And the Ashokan inscriptions mention those as his border kingdoms. This is what I'm aware of, sir.
You talked about Cher dynasty, and that is also associated with Sangam period.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of the one Cher king, Sengu II? Do you have any idea about Sengu II?
Yes, I've read about him.
Because he was given a title Imai Varamvan. Are you familiar with this title?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, no problem. Whatever you have to say, you're free to say.
Sir, I've just read that he's one of the, famous Chera rulers. And he had relations with Sri Lanka as well.
Okay.
And that's all that comes to mind.
One of the court poet of Sengu II, he used the title Imai Varamvan for Sengu II. And the meaning of Imai Varamvan is the ruler whose empire extends from Kanyakumari to Himalaya. Do you believe in this? Or it was just a kind of exaggeration?
So, given the number of kingdoms and the spread of the localized spread of various empires at that time, it is hard to think that before the British, whether there was such an administration that actually expansed from the Himalayas till the Kanyakumari. So I would think there is a bit of exaggeration in that statement.
One more thing, that when we talk about the features of Kerala, that is, it has got a very positive population development. Then it has also got the highest human development index, highest life expectancy, highest literary rate, then also highest sex ratio. So when we try to analyze all these things, we find Kerala to be a very, very well-developed state. So how these things became possible?
Sure, sir. So the impetus for a focus on the social development of the inhabitants of Kerala was actually seen from the Cochin and Travancore kingdoms itself before pre-independence itself. And even after independence, our initial governments itself, some of them were communist governments who had a greater leaning towards the welfarist policies. And even they focused a lot on health, education, universalization of health, universalization of education, which led to the equalized development. I mean, obviously with there are tribal issues that are not looked at, but there was a great push towards welfare policies across governments, and I think that is what has happened here, where you see a very good social indicators in our state.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Sam, how are you feeling?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
Sam, you are a chartered accountant. Tell me, if you go by technology, now we have the blockchain technology. We also have artificial intelligence. Why do we need chartered accountant at all? Unless, of course, we want dishonesty to continue.
So that is true that blockchain and blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, along with things like machine learning and automation, have actually given a lot of tools to the auditors to really make their job more efficient. But at the end of the day, we haven't developed these scripts to a level where they can actually check business wisdom, business logic, and there is certain human analysis of operations and of financials that a chartered accountant does. So I think a chartered accountant, along with ensuring as a profession that we are very ethical about our activities, need to incorporate these tools in our function to make the chartered accountancy profession more efficient and faster than it is today.
Okay. Sam, considering that your training is in accounts and business thing, and there are several services available which correspond to these skills. We have audited account, we have several accounting services, but you have taken foreign service as your first choice, which to me is a little surprising, because I believe that diplomacy is where the least of these skills are required. What's your take?
So yes, my core skill is probably not what is the first thing you look for in a diplomat, sir. But like I said, my ambition to work in the civil services came from a need to make a more meaningful contribution. And today, in today's world of increasing globalization, collaboration between countries and cooperation is the only way we can solve the problems we face today. And I wanted to be part of India's face while doing that. But talking about my profession, sir, the skills that I've learned that can actually help me over the past decade, I've learned how clear communication is. The ability to communicate and work with multiple stakeholders towards one goal. And the use of data also, sir. Data for better lives is even the tagline of our World Development Report. So these skills have been indirect learnings with my profession that I can use. And also, sir, I've actually put Indian Audit and Account Service a little higher in the chain.
Just give me the contribution of Vijay Lakshmi Pandit in the foreign policy of India.
Sure, sir. Miss Vijay Lakshmi Pandit was our first representative to the UN. And she was at the UN at a time when we were finding our foot in the world of IR, so to speak. So she was there at the UN during this crucial time when we had to maybe pick sides, but we went with the non-aligned position. And she was our spokesperson at the UN during this tumultuous time, and that is one of the biggest contributions of Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. In my limited knowledge, I'm afraid so I can't recall specific points. Right?
Anyways, thank you, ma'am.
Sam.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, why don't we go for banking transaction tax and remove all other taxes?
Ma'am, may I have a second to think about it? Ma'am, I haven't researched this topic in detail, but one point that comes to mind is taxation to be effective needs to be progressive in nature. It needs to ensure that the rich are taxed more and the poor are taxed less. I'm not sure if the banking transaction tax, which only measures inflows or outflows, can be a solid substitute for income measurement. And I would think this is one of the reasons that banking transaction tax is not in play fully.
Very right. Can you think of any other reason why this banking transaction tax will be bad for economy?
Ma'am, another reason could probably be the amount of cash we have flowing in our economy and how every transaction is not routed through the bank. I believe this year or last year we touched our highest percentage of cash as a percentage of GDP, 15% or so for a while. So then the presence of the non-formal market in money will also be a dampener to a banking transaction.
Very right, very right. You are also a CA.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, India is working on cash economy or accrual economy? Accounting systems.
Sure. Ma'am, accounting system, the corporates and companies, businesses which are formalized mostly work on an accrual system and follow a double entry bookkeeping mechanism, which is accrual. And it's usually smaller businesses and informal businesses that follow a cash and receipts system, which is not accrual.
What's the difference?
The difference is, ma'am, a transaction is recorded according to the period it pertains to in an accrual system. So you might have to pay an interest on a loan only next year, but if it pertains to this year, you record it in your books this year. Whereas in a cash system, it's about cash flowing in and out of your system, whichever period it relates to. In the period in which it came out or went in, it will be recorded.
Okay, very right. Tell me, why is that our neighbor Pakistan is always in political turmoil?
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, there are a variety of reasons to this. Something that started from their time of their independence, where I think there was a push to create a specific identity for the state while trumping that of India. And this led to a focus away from the developmental activities in the state, in the country. Second is the lack of a stable governance in that country, which has something to do with the influence of the military in the governance of that country. The military, in its bid to stay relevant, has been seen to create moves behind the curtains to topple different governments and ensure that they are in power, at least in substance over form. So these two are the main reasons that I believe lack of stable governance and lack of good policies that have led to Pakistan always being in political turmoil today.
Any other reason you can think of? Okay, tell me, what is a deep state?
Ma'am, may I have a second to formulate my answer? Ma'am, I'm not 100% sure about this, so may I be allowed to tell you what I think it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ma'am, deep state is a part of the government that is a certain sect, a certain part, people or groups or organizations that works with the backing of the government but is under covers, and you can't, though their actions are deeply felt, you don't get to see support from them officially by the government that is in power. So it's called deep state. If I'm right, maybe the activities of militants in Pakistan which are sponsored by the government can be called deep state, but I'm not sure, ma'am.
Okay, no issues. Tell me, this organization, UNSC, has it failed? Is it of any relevance now?
Ma'am, this anecdote comes to mind that there's this knotted gun sculpture outside the UN, which was supposed to mean that the UN will ensure that war is not created anywhere. But today that knotted gun maybe means a powerless UN, and this is a good point to be raised here, because the UN Security Council, though it hasn't failed per se, because there's a lot of good that has come from it in the past, today it doesn't reflect the world order that has been created, a multipolar world with emerging economies in Asia, where we see India. In Africa and Latin America, there are emerging economies with no representation on the Security Council. And the impact of the veto mechanism has also muted the actions of the Security Council in a lot of areas. So the Security Council has not failed, but it's dampened now, and it needs reforms to bring it back to the purpose of the knotted gun outside the UN building.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Sam.
Hi, sir.
You received your education in Muscat, right?
Yes, sir.
I always wondered what attracts people, Indians especially, to Gulf countries. Because we see most of the migration taking place to Gulf countries. Why is it so?
So what happened was that in the 1970s, there was an oil boom in the Gulf, which brought in a lot of investment and money there. And they didn't have enough population and skills for a lot of jobs. Like in my specific case, it was the nursing profession that took my mother to the Gulf countries. And so the development that oil brought in and the lack of population and skills is what created a huge migration.
But it's still continuing now also. Like if you see roughly 22% of migration is towards Gulf. Why is it now? We have increase in skill and so on. Still.
So yes, it still continues now to an extent, though a lot of the Gulf economies are looking at giving their own nationals jobs. One effect is also other than the pull effect that I mentioned, there's also a push effect from India, where like in Kerala, you can see that many of the educated youth don't have job opportunities in Kerala. So then there is a push effect to send them out to other countries where there are opportunities for them, and this also is contributing today to migration.
So that raises another question. First, why like Kerala has everything. It has education, it has good environment, it has resources. Why is that Kerala is not in the industrial map of India? Why do we have less industries in Kerala compared to other southern states, especially Karnataka, Tamil Nadu? Why is it so?
Yes, sir, it is very true that Kerala has been lagging back on the industrial development of the state. I think the reasons beget looking at the factors of production for any industry. Kerala land, when you look at land, Kerala has a very eco-fragile relationship with its environment, where the Western Ghats and other environmental areas don't give you as much access to land as you would want. This is one issue. Second, there has been labor issues have been seen as there's been trade militancy and politicization of labor issues, which has also been a dampener.
But these labor issues are good for the labor, isn't it? How do they affect industries?
So labor issues are good for the labor if there is a proper policy and research to guide these actions. If they're just on the behest of political parties, then businesses are not able to function cost efficiently. Like recently we saw Kitex, a huge industrial player in Kerala, moving out to Telangana because they just realized that operations are not cost effective in Kerala. So policy has
similar
to be...
I guess similar is the case with the smart city concept coming to Cochin for long. Okay, now since it's eco-fragile, but still Kerala should not experience floods because there's so much of vegetation. Why is Kerala experiencing so many floods for last like 2 years or so?
So there are two reasons. One, because of the Western Ghats and our position in the monsoon, in the direction of the monsoon winds, we get the first.
But do Western Ghats get flood?
The Western Ghats are actually they don't get flooded, but they have the disaster problem of landslides. So during any rain which is above a certain expectation, there are landslides there. But coming back to your question, sir, I think another reason for the floods to be created is also a lot of encroachment of wetlands has happened in Kerala. The natural flow of water bodies has been affected. So along with the impacts of climate change that are being observed all over the world, where the intensity of rainfall has increased, proper flood channels and proper management is also missing in some places, which is why the impact of such disastrous floods.
Okay, I see your interest is in hiking, right? Hikes in Western Ghats, Khasi Hills, Himalayas, you've been there, right?
Yes, sir.
Khasi Hills get so much of rain, isn't it? Like very heavy rain. But still there is water problem. Still there's a water shortage. What is causing that water shortage in the region?
So may I have a minute to think about that, please? So I would think the community, Meghalaya, the community itself has a lot of traditional water harvesting mechanisms and traditional ways to collect water which have been practiced since a while. But I still think there are issues to really get access to groundwater, because that would require more modern mechanisms and more modern industrial tools, which probably they don't have access to, or they don't have quick and ready access to because of their distance from the mainland and the problems of connectivity that the country is trying to solve.
And we saw similar problems in Plachimada, so you're aware of that?
Sir, I'm aware of the problem in Plachimada, which the cola factory had when because of the dumping of waste, and thus the locals there were not getting enough access to water.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
Sam, during your interaction, you said that corporate houses and big companies, they follow accrual accounting system, whereas small setups, shops, and all, they follow cash-based accounting, isn't it? Which accounting policy government of India is following?
So the government of India actually follows a single entry bookkeeping system.
That is cash-based only?
Yes, sir. But the reason for that is actually different over there. The double entry system of accrual is actually best followed when there is an absolute quid pro quo between two parties in a transaction. So when it's taken from one, it's given to another. If you accrue to one or in your company, so there is a give and take which is exact. But in a government, you take money from different sources. You tax the rich to help the poor. There are a lot of welfare policies, so you don't have an absolute quid pro quo. And
you are a chartered accountant. Government of India is trying to move investors to invest in the projects of the government. If as an investor I want to look at the balance sheet of the government, what conclusions can I draw based on these principles of cash accounting?
Yes, sir, that issue is there. But sir, when we're inviting certain specific investments into certain specific businesses, say the Japanese investment into railways, that project would have a specific asset, balance sheet and liabilities. And also the government's macroeconomic indicators are there for comparison, just like any other country.
So you feel that govgovernment of India, the accounting policy of the government India, which it has been following till date, is okay?
So there is always, the best form of accounting system to follow is always double entry accounting system. Today, India's accounting system is is good for the times that it is in, but just like any other
But
practice.
our Prime Minister is extremely concerned about the caste-based accounting system followed by the Government of India, and he has given a mandate to the government departments to switch over to the accrual-based accounting system as early as possible.
So I'm aware that there was this push, and a lot of in fact in the local government accounting we did move fully to double entry system in a lot of states. And yes, that is something that we can look at in the Indian government also, but I believe it's a journey and not a quick.
So one last question from you again with regard to your state, Kerala. Matrilineal society is believed to be existing not only among Hindus but also among Muslims and Christians in Kerala. Do you agree with this?
As far as Christians are concerned, I have not seen the existence of a matrilineal society where the children take the name of their mother and so on and so forth. What I have seen in Kerala is that there is a very huge acceptance for women empowerment and for seeing women in equal positions as men. But I have not, in my limited knowledge, seen the matrilineal system in Christians and Muslim communities.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. Your interview is over.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am.
Sit, Sam. So, how was your experience?
Sir, it was a pleasure. Sir. It was a privilege. Thank you, sir.
So, Sam, this is going to be your first attempt at the UPSC interview?
That's right, sir.
And which attempt overall?
So, my final attempt, sir.
Final attempt. So, what has happened in the past?
So, though I was working also, I wouldn't blame work fully. I think there was some kind of consistency lacking in my efforts, which I tried to correct this time, given that it was the ultimate
All
attempt.
these years you have opted for accountancy only?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, how you have done this year?
So I think I've done all my paper. One of the things I was able to complete all the papers, and I felt I did better than any other year.
Sam, your interview went very well. An excellent candidate, no doubt about it. And you are aspiring to become a member of the Indian Foreign Service. So we didn't ask you too many questions on that aspect of working. But you should, whatever little time you have at your disposal, your 19th is your interview now. You prepare yourself thoroughly on India's relationship with various countries, the current crisis, international crisis, various facets of those crises, what could be the point of argument from your side, whether we should be with Russia, whether we should be with Ukraine, or we should remain neutral, what happens to NATO, what is the counter to NATO, all those issues, and whatever is happening around the world, and India's relationship with China, with USA, with Russia and all that. So you be thorough, and you must be getting questions on that when you go for the interview. That is one. You are coming from a very interesting state like Kerala. A lot of questions will be asked. The role of trade unions in Kerala, the role of cooperatives in Kerala, whether they are helping the government in taking the state forward, or they are more of an obstacle, isn't it? You know all the details. So prepare the Kerala also, God's own country. There is a mythological explanation also to that.
Okay.
So that you should also go back and read. You should add to that also,
sure,
apart from this. Your questions on your general awareness related to commerce and accountancy is perfect. No problem. But when you talk of the central government or the union government, particularly the accounting principles and policies, there you have to be more forthright.
Sure, sir.
Because caste-based is just not acceptable. As because we are dealing with a caste, that doesn't mean we should continue to deal with the caste,
correct,
isn't it? So you clearly say that there is an urgent need for switching over to accrual-based accounting, and government is working in this direction. In fact, an organization has been set up for this purpose only.
Right, sir.
And you remember some case examples you can take. Because in the case of New Zealand, a small country like New Zealand, it has taken 9 years to switch over from cash-based accrual to cash-based to accrual-based accounting. So it's a mammoth job for the, but some departments where investment is required, it's high time they should try to switch over. Then gradually we can. So that kind of argument you can take. Then regarding your sense of dressing, you'll be going in this dress
No,
only?
sir, I'll be wearing a suit.
You'll be wearing a suit. What about your beard?
So that is a question that I need to address.
You see, if you go clean shave, you look younger.
Yeah, I don't want to take a risk. I've always had a beard, so I was wondering.
You forget about this. For 10 days, you stop
no problem,
growing
sir.
beard.
Yeah, I don't want to take a risk.
Go clean shave. Go for haircut. Shoes, obviously.
Everything will change.
Everything will change. It should gel with each other.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? Yeah. So shoes, anyway, you're changing the whole thing. And as because you have worked in the private sector for a long time, so your natural and normal reaction is sure. Sure is not acceptable in government parlance, isn't it? So try to avoid that. Sure.
So don't say anything. Just answer the question.
Just answer. There is no need to inform the board that you have understood the question.
Yes.
Just you have understood, and then you. Otherwise, you are an excellent candidate, Sam, and you will be getting very good marks in the interview. We have no doubt in our. It all depends how you have done in your accountancy paper. If you have done well in accountancy paper, you will be doing very well in your personality also, and you will be in the list of successful candidates. Okay, wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. So over a decade of seeing you all on YouTube, it's surreal to come sit here today. Thank you for your time.
But, take care and do your best.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
All the best.